So my last little video was about, when the video before I was just sort of talking about some philosophers from the perspective of a different way of seeing, or a different frame than the Anglophile philosophers. And in the last video, I was saying, that I was predicting a response in terms of saying, oh well, through philosophy, we've had this, and getting the whole kind of sense in which these ideas have been sort of ironed out of philosophy now. And so I was showing major unavoidable aspects of the subject of philosophy that connects deeply with something that is against this Anglophile anti-continental current philosophy trend. Now the two I missed out were I didn't go back beyond Plato to see who influenced Plato and the very interesting complex battle that happened after the birth of philosophy. And I also didn't touch on Hegel. Now, Hegel is one of those German idealists. Now, he's very wrapped up in the revolution. There's a revolutionary fervour. His head is totally in it. It's like the world is anew. How are we going to do it? And what he doesn't realise is that there's a sort of left-right thing going on. It's too close to him. He doesn't understand that that's, now in our era we're starting to see that while complex, the strong element of the left is what comes out of the revolution, really. So he's very sort of deep in it, and he wants to, as he says, be the German, the Germans who take what the French have done and make it work, or make it a sort of process it. And while he's sort of, like so often in life, you find people trying to resolve the stark dichotomies of the current era in complex ways where they get themselves completely stuck. They can't be seen to be part of the other team, the other cult. So they try to change their own cult in a way that makes it whole and makes it take over the other side and acknowledge the other side, or work in terms of the energies. I was going to say energies. That's a very new age term. It's an interesting one. The functional words like that, of functional ability of the other side, the other argument, the opposition, the cult on the opposition to their cult. And Hegel is very much doing that because he's trying to bring a new idea. What I've said before is a theory of God. This idea of the world spirit. It's a genuine understanding of what this idea of God might be. And it's like all this leftism that comes out of the French Revolution, sweeping away the order of what is prescribed as social truth. He wants to try and process it and reconnect with an idea of God. And there's also Buddhism in there. This idea of an end point. At the end point, we'll all have this perfect society. Schopenhauer and Nietzsche very much rebelled against the Buddhist side of Hegel, and I think it becomes quite clear through them. And Kierkegaard as well. Don't forget Kierkegaard, very important excellent idea that you want a basis for philosophy. And he says every person uh, goes on a journey of self discovery or self um, examination, and this is hence the term existentialism comes from him. Um, Although he was very Christian and his journey was quite Christian. So Hegel is trying to bring this idea of God back in a way that we, to provide a genuine theory of God, to connect with this idea fully, in order to try to mitigate the gaping hole in the cult of this leftism that's sweeping the world so powerfully, or Europe so powerfully in the after the revolution. So there again you can see, and he's an idealist. So although he is confused with the left, you can see that there's this element of this religiousness, what the Anglophile philosophers would sort of hatefully, sort of in their atheist way, call religious nonsense. Idealism very much is a means by which so-called religious nonsense is very much a part of the history of philosophy. Ideas of an overarching monism, things. Although it seems complex and we are scared of the world, things kind of work out. There's an overarching sense of God is looking after you, in the sense that this overarching spiritual idea of a monism, of a unity. And let me just explain that slightly. What this monism is described as very very well in earlier philosophy. He's trying to bring that back. So you can see that there are very big idealists in the history of philosophy, and to say that you cannot, that philosophy is now, we've ironed out all this nonsense. No, if you're a philosopher, you can't just be based on proof. It's about persuasion. It's about not having this proof-based, science-based idea of the core of singular truth. That you can grasp the core of nature of truth, and it's singular. It's scientific. You cannot grasp it. We simply asked a question in philosophy: what is it possible that you can say that this person speaks the truth more than that person? That is simply all we have done in philosophy. That is the basis of philosophy. It is a question. There is no ability to make a statement that we have discovered the core of truth. Philosophy has an understanding of the core of truth. We do not. What we do have is hopefully an attempt at a functioning system. So then that goes back to the so then I was going to go back to the pre-Platonics, or pre-Socratics, as they're much more commonly known, because Plato claimed to be simply reiterating, and everyone really knows he's reiterating. Did I say reiterating? He's reiterating, but he's reinterpreting Socrates. So he claims to simply be reiterating Socrates. And what that tells us about what Socrates thought is very interesting. But yes, the pre-Socratics, after the first three, Thales, etc., the modern, so-called modern, or the modernity obsessed Anglophile philosophers just laugh about these guys. Oh, how funny that this guy says the world is made of air, and this guy says the world is made of water, and they judge the rest of pre-Aristotelian philosophy on the basis of these strange people that came up with these ideas that have no basis. let's skip the first three. The birth of philosophy is an interesting subject, but when you look at beyond those three to Pythagoras, who comes afterwards, and then Heraclitus and Parmenides, what you get is this incredible debate, and it ends up in the sort of two schools: the quite negative, you can't say anything side, which is the students of Heraclitus, not specifically Heraclitus himself. And this comes from this idea of you can't stand in the same river twice. Everything is constantly changing. Heraclitus is into change. And Pythagoras talks of a monism in that he's into numerology, and the most important is one is the number. He makes everything into maths, and ultimately in his numerology everything is one, and this is monism. And he says that I was going to say earlier that when we talk about monism, the example given is nature, because all these people around that time wrote books called On Nature, and it's a reference to this idea. Nature is an idea we have. It's a monism. You go to the person in the street. Well, you could ask them two questions. Is there such a thing as personality? Yes, they would say there is such a thing as personality. Is there such a thing as nature? Yes, there is such a thing as nature. No one would deny these things. These are such strong rocks on which you can build philosophy, as well as the idea of morality, of being good, the need to try to be good in the world. You can build philosophy on solid ideas like that can be very strongly argued, that many people agree with. It's not proven, but many people agree with it. Society agrees with this. So nature is a monism, and in the same way you can take a step beyond nature and say, well, is there a goodness, in the same way that you can make a soul out of a personality? Is there a goodness in humanity? That's soul rather than personality. Is there goodness in nature? That's God rather than nature. It's a monism. It suggests that instead of things getting more and more complicated, actually things unify into, this sense of a unified sense of idea of nature. All these individual animals and plants, they unify into nature. They don't just get more complicated and we have no idea. It's not the case of you can't stand in the same river twice. It's an interesting idea, and it's an important one not to reject, but there's a dichotomy there. That's this war between Parmenides, the very much everything, nothing changes. There's a constancy out of which you get the idea of the atoms, constant bricks out of which things are made. The other one was cells. That biology is made of cells. This is very early pre-Socratic. I can't remember the name of the guy. Democritus was the atoms guy, and the other one, his parallel. There's another parallel fella in that era, just after that dichotomy of Parmenides. They come out of this dichotomy of Parmenides and Heraclitus. One's into atoms and the others. It sounds very much like atoms, and it sounds very much like cells. That's as good as I can do right now. I'm a bit dyslexic. I have read it. I do know that this is a product of the dichotomy of Heraclitus and Parmenides. So there's a lot to do with an idea of that becomes idealism, becomes this idea of the good and of the unity of goodness in the world, of a sense of monism, an overarching idea, rather than everything just getting more and more complicated. You never say anything. In fact, things come together rather than falling apart. That's the philosophy. That's the thinking. There's a proposal that this idea that you can't say anything because it's always changing is not correct, and in fact the opposite is correct. Things come together. And this example of that we don't talk about, that we can talk about a thing called nature rather than just having to talk about each individual plant and flower and animal. There's a sense of an overarching understanding that things come together. Right, there we go. Ooh, smack on 15 minutes.